Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Marine Log webinar discussion. This time, we are focusing on how the industry can use connectivity to meet the challenges of decarbonization. The adoption of IMO's mandatory measures to cut greenhouse gas emissions from global shipping has resulted in the creation of an ecosystem of sophisticated digital tools and solutions that reduce the carbon footprint. To meet environmental compliance, ship owners are increasingly implementing data-driven processes to optimize operations to reduce carbon emissions. In today's webinar, sponsored by Inmarsat, we will discuss this and how the digital transformation is crucial to decarbonizing the shipping industry, and how digitalization itself is reliant on connectivity. I'm Heather Irvin, Editor-in-Chief of Marine Log, and I'll be your host today. Joining me is Eric Griffin, Vice President of Offshore Energy and Fishing with Inmarsat, Eleni Polochronopoulou, President and CEO of METIS, Cyberspace Technology SA, and Chris Sett, Vice President of Information Technology with C-SPAN Corporation. Now let's jump into this important topic. First off, thank you so much, Eric, Eleni, Chris, for joining Marine Log today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. Eric, I think we're going to go ahead and start with you. In the last years, data exchange ship to shore has increased exponentially. Can Inmarsat offer guidance on the growth in data usage and some insights on whether these figures relate to OSV operator sustainability strategies?
Sure I can. Thank you. Data usage on commercial maritime vessels has jumped more than threefold since 2019. Inmarsat has recently undergone further data analytics across the maritime space, and it shows year-over-year demand, in particular from 2021 to 2022. It was highest among container shipping companies, doubling over that time frame, while connectivity increased by 70% on oil tanker operations, 85% amongst offshore supply vessels, and by 46% on bulk carriers over that period of time. In the case of the offshore supply vessel market, usage is indeed related to the increase in digitalization and decarbonization. And digitalization is a means to enabling further decarbonization. To do so, it requires further insights into the efficiency of numerous shipboard systems, as well as the ability to gauge the impact of external factors on machinery and overall vessel performance. So as an example, we have a customer who is presently monitoring 5,000 data points on every vessel every day. And they are looking to increase that from 5,000 at the present time to 10,000 per vessel per day here within the next 6 to 12 months. To do so requires additional volume of data. And so that's where we come into play.
Okay. A recent Inmarsat research program project with, I believe it's called Thetis, suggested that using data-driven vessel optimization techniques could help ships reduce carbon emissions by, I want to say, 38%. Was it the most exciting, what is the most exciting technology development that connectivity is enabling to enhance sustainability? And I'd like to start with Eric and then Eleni. If you could join in on that question as well, that'd be great.
Sure. So I can give you a specific example. So one of our customers in Norway, North Sea Shipping, has recently made the transition from manual reporting to high-frequency data extraction using our fleet data platform, as well as the VPS Maris solution, or formerly from IMO Maritime. Through that, they gain more detailed insight into how they operate the vessels, allowing them to make more precise decisions to further optimize their operations. The systematic approach to emission reductions and data-driven efficiency led to CO2 savings of 9% in 2021, equal to more than 3,000 tons of CO2, as presented in their ESG report for 2021. By April of 2022, they achieved a further 10% reduction, emission reduction, or an impressive 11.8% fuel reduction in 2022 compared to its own historic baseline.
Okay. Eleni, did you have any comments on that?
So yes, there are definitely operational measures that one can take in order to reduce the emissions, such as hull and propeller cleaning, also optimizing the vessel itself, the main engine, the diesel generators, use alternative fuels or clean fuels, as well as operations such as the weather routing, the scheduling optimization, speed reduction policies. According to the focus of each company, the interest is placed in several sections, and there is a cumulative gain in reducing the fuel oil consumption and, of course, the emissions. So the most interesting aspect for us is that we are now able to evaluate and quantify the gain in a predictive way and propose the best mix for each specific vessel in order to maximize the benefit and help shipping companies make justified decisions. So this is where real-time data, AI, and machine learning are very valuable. This is an area on which we're now heavily investing, and we want to explore as far as it gets. And of course, connectivity is the essential ingredient for all these interesting developments. We cannot proceed in any of those without connectivity.
Okay, great. Chris, I have a question I'd like to ask you. Could you tell us how C-SPAN has taken a strategic approach to connectivity and how that has helped shipping companies realize fleet-wide optimization?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about vessel connectivity, historically, it's been a commodity that was very limited and restricted. And we really are taking the approach to take a vessel no different than a remote office from the holistic IT service provision. And it does start with connectivity. So in the year 2021 or 22, you cannot seriously ask a seafarer to pay for internet vouchers, right? So again, if you mirror that concept that a vessel is no different than a remote office, you wouldn't ask your employees in the office to pay for internet, right? So we basically strategically decided that is the avenue we wanted to go, and started renegotiating all our satellite connectivity agreements with VSAT suppliers to basically have an unlimited broadband data plan, so that we can offer that now to our seafarers. So since April, May 2022, we offer unlimited, unrestricted broadband data for VSAT to all of our seafarers.
Okay. Staying with you, Chris, what is C-SPAN's stance and, again, strategic approach towards vessel connectivity, and how are you executing that strategy?
Yeah, so obviously we have a fleet and equipment and existing incumbent suppliers. So as I mentioned, we renegotiated all our agreements so that we can accommodate that and that there is no overage fees. And that's really super important for that. Now, once you start implementing as well low Earth orbit service, there's a couple of providers out there right now that offer that. I would almost describe the connectivity, the hype on connectivity as almost like a little bit of an iceberg. Because just getting connectivity to the vessel is only really half the story when you think about cyber risks and network segmentation requirements and bandwidth management. And I think that is almost as important as having the connectivity to the vessel, is to make sure that you have the services, skills, and infrastructure on the vessel to actually manage that. So what got us here won't get us there. It's like the old saying here where the SD-WAN capabilities, most vessels don't actually have them, where you do a proper traffic management and prioritization. The one example I like to share is we're offering, as I mentioned, unlimited data to our seafarers, and we now in the luxurious position where we, for example, have to make sure that if somebody's watching Netflix, that they're not streaming at 4K, right? So that because the client will grab what it can in terms of bandwidth, so you have to utilize your tools to, when Netflix traffic is identified, that you just give the minimum it requires to stream Netflix. So those are capabilities that are extremely important. When we talk about the use of IoT data, sensor data, OT system remote control, you require proper network segmentation and provisions for cyber risk management, and really up your game on cyber risk posture on the vessel. Again, we're applying a concept to treat a vessel no different than a remote office, and you wouldn't let some vendor, unrestricted connect into your data center to perform some service or maintenance. So those are things, I think, that the concept that we apply to treat the vessel no different than a remote office, is the one that mostly resonates with people, because we're consequently applying that concept through all stages: connectivity, firewalling, SD-WAN, network segmentation, user access, so the deployment of Active Directory, ensuring that OT networks are segmented. So the whole game has to be brought to the vessel, because now with increased connectivity, you also increase new risks, right? That was sort of the one thing. If you're disconnected, you're not exposed to cyber risks. But the more you're connected, you actually have to deal with that the same way you have to deal with it at shore.
Okay, now you brought up some really good points, Chris. I guess one more thing, how are you able to justify to the business any new CAPEX, OPEX spend because of your imperative of improving vessel connectivity?
Yeah, really good question. So as I mentioned, we do try to utilize a residual value of equipment that we have in the fleet. So maximizing, in essence, our investment. But that, of course, is not enough. As I mentioned, the treatment of a vessel no different than on a shore. For those kinds of investments, cyber risk is actually a good driver, where you say, what is the enterprise risk if you don't deal with it? Here is the certain things that can happen. There is a nice case study, I think it happened in 2017, where a trade vessel somewhere in Asia had been supposedly taken over remotely and steered into a US Navy vessel. So now all of a sudden you have the tangible use case, or a tangible situation where a vessel asset could have been used as a weapon, actually. So that's not a tech fluke. These types of scenarios, everybody is familiar with ransomware attacks nowadays that happen to many companies and are still happening. So I think when it comes to asking for investments on a board level, those are the real things that people are familiar with. They've heard about it from the shore world. Again, you apply and you articulate that the risks that we're trying to manage are no different than the ones at shore. And that kind of bridges the gap to actually get the investment approval to deal with this on an enterprise level. I think the other lens here is, and it really depends on the size of your fleet. So by the end of next year, we're going to have 200 container ships that we own and operate. And, you have to deploy, from my perspective, we have to look for scalable, sustainable solutions to deal with those types of problems. Somebody with maybe 10, 15 vessels has different problems than somebody that has a few hundred, because the support efforts, they go exponentially up, linear actually, if you don't look at it from an enterprise perspective.
Sure. Eric, I'm going to actually hop back over to you. Inmarsat has several key clients in the offshore support sector, which is an area where digitalization is perhaps further ahead than in some other sectors. How is connectivity supporting their objectives in terms of smarter operations and perhaps also crew welfare?
Sure. So, look, COVID-19 had a huge impact on ship operations, not just for the offshore supply vessel market, but for across the maritime space. And there was an increasing desire, or there was an increasing view at this time, and Chris alluded to this earlier, it's considering a vessel at sea no different than an office on shore. And so these employees or these crew members needed to be able to access the things that they needed to be able to access in the office, such as Microsoft Office 365 suite, such as SAP, other internal corporate ERP applications that they needed access to remotely. In addition to that, there was an increasing driver for remote services. So pilotage, remote surveys, remote vehicle operation, and of course, you're now starting to see an increase in the autonomous vessel space. All of that is driven. All of those things are driving connectivity and the additional need for connectivity at sea. In addition to that, crew is an ever-increasing part of the overall usage on board a vessel. At CMA recently, the topic of recruiting crew members was a front and center topic. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to bring new crew members into the fold. Well, one of the questions that these new crew members, when they come on board, is what's the quality of the internet? And they want what I'll call the Starbucks experience. So they want the same level of quality of internet that they have on a vessel that they get in a coffee shop or at home. And of course, we need to be able to continue, we need to be able to provide that level of service and continue to provide that level of service going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Eleni, shipping is increasingly accountable on sustainability, and data analytics should offer the means of measuring compliance. But much of the information collected for reporting is on spreadsheets and emails or on paper. What are you doing to change the relationship between data capture and compliance?
Thank you for the question. Of course, we all know the quote, you can manage it if you cannot measure it. So when saying measure, we definitely don't mean measuring manually. We are in the era of big data and technology to collect automatically at least 80% of the data needed. This is here. It makes no sense to have manual data collection processes, and even more to have decision-making based on data, which everyone admits that are not reliable. We believe that automated data acquisition should be formally introduced, even on a regulatory level as a guidance, and linked directly with data validity and compliance. It's true that all companies suffer from the same problem. We do have the information all over, but now it is more easy than ever to collect the information in a single point of truth, in a source which is going to be the single point of truth for all decision-making application. And with our platform, this is what we are doing. We are building a reliable solution that starts from the collection of the data on board and goes up to the transfer of the required emission-related information to a verifier in line with all the regulations.
In particular, verified emissions data is now a prerequisite of doing business in shipping. Eleni, what is your view on the job market, on what the job market is doing to ensure digital solutions meet class verification requirements?
Right. So, following also on your previous question, at the moment, I would say 95% of the data is submitted for verification, which is submitted for verification, are recorded manually. And this is directly related to the validity of the submitted data and the compliance. So on this context, we have started to get in touch with the classes in order to establish the required integrations that will enable shipping companies to automate the process of collecting and verifying their emission-related data. We have already established an agreement with DNB, and with other classes, we are working towards this direction as well.
Okay. So, Eric, I'm going to ask you, integrating data sets from different sources creates new opportunities to enhance ship performance, right? So given Inmarsat's reach via its ecosystem of digital applications, is it active in enabling, for example, the integration of real-time weather data, maybe, or improving voyage performance, utilization, routing, things like that?
Sure. So Inmarsat's fleet data, digital platform, in particular, its Fleet Connect and its fleet data platforms, we are aggregating the data and providing that to the client, either in via a web portal, or the client has access to all the data from the vessel via an API format, should they choose, that they can in turn send to any of our various certified application partners. And weather data, as you alluded to, Heather, that's absolutely one of them. So we partner with the likes of I4C or Japan Weather Association, where that information can be used for to improve routing, voyage routing. We're also working with ABB and their Ability Marine Fleet Intelligence platform to be able to get better insight into the vessel, and with the idea of being able to perform it more efficiently and also improve lower carbon emissions. And finally, clients and charterers on board are demanding more visibility into what's happening on a vessel, specifically access to what's happening on live video feeds through closed caption television. And some of these clients and charters on board are asking for quite a lot of CCTV footage to be able to be sent back. And we partner with the likes of Harvest Technology Group or VideoSoft to be able to provide multiple CCTV video feeds efficiently over a satellite connection, and able to do that quite economically as well.
Okay. Speaking of delivering positive outcomes to seafarers or for seafarers, Eric, in addition to personal connectivity, which is widely known to be crucial in attracting and retaining crew, as we talked about earlier, digital technologies can support health on board with, for example, telemedicine services. Has this revolutionized healthcare for crew, and how is this contributing to the wider picture of sustainability at sea?
Sure. So up until recently, telemedicine was viewed as only used when there was a problem with a crew member on board. Since the pandemic, we have seen a shift more into overall health management, and we partner with a company called Beacon, and they provide their health net, or what they call their total healthcare solution, and this covers all aspects of ongoing healthcare. So it's not only urgent care when something goes wrong, but there's monthly house calls, there's chronic disease management, there's crew wellness, there's mental health management, and that's all available via 24/7 to the crew member at sea. And the idea being is that by managing the end-to-end healthcare needs for the vessel owner and the crew members on board, the cost of the overall crew cost will reduce over time, and the risk management of crew members operating the vessel will also reduce, and therefore resulting in savings from marine insurance and in other areas as well.
Okay. Eleni, back to you. What would you say was the greatest obstacle or challenge for technology when it comes to enabling greater sustainability in shipping?
I believe change management. Change management is one of the most challenging tasks, irrespective of the industry. Shipping is in a transition period, and decarbonisation has brought it forward. We need to transition. We need to transition from a traditional reactive model of vessel management and operation to a proactive model. Technology is not just the tools or the services. Actually, technology requires to adjust the processes and the workflows in order to make the best use of it. Sometimes it even requires to enhance the skill set of the people involved. And we are discussing a lot about upskilling and reskilling, and this is something which is extremely crucial. And this is something that we should see more of. We need to see more people trained in technology and able to use the tools. This is not definitely an easy task. So far, digital technology was on a nice-to-have level for many shipping companies. There were, of course, the early adopters who understood the extreme benefits of digitalization. But now with decarbonisation and the regulatory requirements by IMO, the scenery has changed, and this has given a significant boost to the adoption rate of new technology. So we see now the owners, the charterers, they need to know before they commit to a voyage, or they need to know before they commit to a charter party what the CII would be of the vessel. So they will be adjusting the terms, and they will be monitoring much closely. So the operational profile will change, and the pattern will follow what is required. And this is just an example, because we have now EU ETS who is coming, we have Fuel EU who is coming, and of course we are waiting from IMO for the decisions from their side regarding the emissions tackling the years to come.
Okay. We've seen efforts to bring charterers into the framework on ship carbon emissions meet resistance. Eleni, can digital solutions help to reconcile the tension between charter terms and shipping's decarbonisation agenda?
Indeed, there is some tension in the relationship between charterers and owners caused by the decarbonisation issue. We believe that the key to tackle the challenges is transparency and dialogue. And digital solution is an effective means to serve this purpose. So I will give you an example. Every year, any ship which is under charter has to keep track of its CII rating and to be within certain limits. Otherwise, there will be trouble. So this means that both the owner and the charterer must keep track of the ship's performance at least after every trip is completed in order to be able to adjust performance for the next trip. So data transparency provided through digital solution could prove to charterers why they cannot now order the ship to go at the speed that was probably feasible in the previous voyages. Predictive scenarios such as what will the CII be after the next voyage, taking into consideration the condition of the specific vessel, the draft, the weather conditions. This is now feasible through technology. Questions such as what would be the optimum speed based on the weather, or which is the optimum route? This is something that can now be answered by solutions that are available in the market, and some of them also we can offer. The owners, however, should be willing to share the data, and charterers should be willing to trust the owners. The whole owner-charter relationship, I believe, will have to change somehow during this transition. It's not straightforward, indeed.
Changing hands a bit, does improved or enhanced connectivity have other downsides or risks aside from potentially higher operating costs? Chris?
Yeah, so just dovetailing to what Eleni said as well. So I had mentioned earlier that we see sort of one tip of the iceberg on the overall maturity on actually handling bandwidth. The other one, actually, I see in the area of data standardization and data normalization in our industry. It seems that the class societies, everybody's doing their own little thing to try to have a standardization. VARs and suppliers are kind of have the hands in the air because they cannot follow a standard. And again, if you look at a company that has a larger fleet, such as ours, we're in the middle of it, right? And I would be really looking forward to the class societies to collaborate on a data classification normalization standard. Look at the automotive industry. Like every car under the dashboard has a port where you can read your error codes, regardless of what manufacturer a car it is, because the industry, long time ago, agreed on a data standardization methodology. And for us, it is very, very difficult to have now a translation layer, so to speak, to normalize the data. And as Eleni has mentioned, we want to be able to deliver standardized data for the purpose to validate that we're meeting certain standards. And in order to do so across a fleet with different series of vessels and 8 different manufacturers, from 10 years old to brand new, you have different data standards. And if you don't normalize that on a large scale, it's going to be very difficult to come to that transparent viewpoint for a charter or an owner.
Okay. So how does improved connectivity, in your view, Chris, support Seaspan's broader decarbonization initiatives across the fleet?
Yeah, so I think it is a mix of the before mentioned points that I had made, where we're really looking out for what's under the iceberg, underneath the iceberg. So on the connectivity side, it's very foundational to ensure that you have the infrastructure, the services in place, that you actually can do this at scale. We did pilot the replacement of noon report data points, a couple of years ago now, where we found that I think 78% of the manually entered data in the noon report actually can be derived from the AMS system on a moderate, modern vessel. And that is huge, again, not just for compliance, but for the need to not having to cleanse data. Because if you solely rely on manual data entry for 80 or 90 data points every day, plus the delay to actually get that at shore and interpret it, I think it was earlier said to, intervene if somebody's going too fast, for example, or if you want to course correct literally, you can't do it. It's been yesterday. It's been, a long time ago when this actually happened. So I think those are the real examples where you can demonstrate that there is value there with its challenges. Now,
Okay.
the other area that is closely related is, and I literally can just refer to it, we a couple of weeks ago delivered a ZIM semi-offer. It's a vessel for our charterers at ZIM, and that is our first LNG dual fuel powered vessel. And guess what? There's like 30, 40 OT, IT connected systems where the suppliers want to have access in real time. They want to have remote management access. There is tremendous amounts of data coming from the vessel to shore, and that has to be done in a proper way. So now we're not only sort of struggling with lack of standards, but now we're also dealing with, you can call it immaturity of the supplier landscape, because they are not prepared to deploy or have services that are in any shape or form secure, if you know what I mean, right? So those are kind of the hand-holding of everybody in the ecosystem towards a more sustainable and scalable operation. We cannot have unrestricted access to the vessel by some supplier that at their leisure that they log into the LNG vessel and perform service. So I think it's going to be, to quote LNE, it's going to be change management, for people to change their skills, change the viewpoint. Again, I'm a strong believer that the lens to treat a vessel no different than an office or a manufacturing facility or a factory or a warehouse. It's the same, right? There's no more obstacle for us to treat a vessel like any other industrial type environment, and you have to protect it. In power plants, for example, it's called critical infrastructure. So you want to protect that. So you want to protect the vessel the same way you protect the power plant. I know it's a long stretch, but that's the type of lens we're putting on, because it's the same types of problems we have.
Okay. So you touched on challenges quite a bit there. What are some of the challenges you see with gathering or collecting high-frequency data from your vessels, or challenges affecting the industry as a whole, Chris?
Yeah, I think I probably covered that one in my last answer, because it really relates to the lack of data standardization. And everybody literally on the supplier side, for the data side of things, not knowing which class society they should follow. I think it's really time to bring those together and not treat it as a competitive advantage if one class has an approach to data standardization that may be different from the other one, because everybody will be suffering from that or create more work ultimately.
Okay. So Chris, what's your company's stance towards crew welfare programs such as personal internet use, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think I may have covered that as well in my opening statement. So our stance is to give people unlimited free internet. Again, we want to treat a vessel different than a remote office, and we're working with a variety of partners to accommodate that, and it includes VSAT and low Earth orbit. And as I mentioned, now you have new challenges. For example, making sure that the video streaming of the video service that they use is optimized, right? Because again, if you don't restrict it, you'll basically suck a 4K HD to one client if somebody's streaming Netflix, for example. So those are, new skills that have to be acquired, new tools and services that you have to have on board to be able to manage that properly and effectively.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Moving on, LNE, integrating data sets from different sources creates new opportunities to enhance ship performance. Integrating real-time weather data now offers a key to improving voyage performance. How is your team, I believe I asked Eric this earlier, but how is your team adapting your services to exploit what is a fast-developing area?
I believe we are living exciting times. We see things that we have never imagined in the past. We have all experienced what is going on now with the explosion of AI applications, and you can do so many things. So it is very, very important to have a platform which is open to interconnection to applications. So you cannot be alone. You need to be working together with application in order to make sure that you can have an ultimate very good result. So like integrating real-time data and performance analysis of individual ships with the weather routing services, this allows us to deliver a huge leap forward for voyage optimization. I would like to emphasize on two things.
Sure.
So the most important is, again, nobody can do everything on its own. It's impossible. It's impossible. The spectrum is so wide. And that's why we decided to cooperate with an expert in the weather routing and not try to develop our own solution from scratch. Also, the value for creating a well-thought integration between two services is a multiple rather than a simple addition of the values of its components. Like 1 + 1 is 3, it's not 2. So recently we have announced the integration of DTN, weather routing optimization API, into our platform, into MITI's platform. And this is for planning for the optimal and safest route that the particular ship can follow based on its specific characteristics, on its digital twin. At the same time, through this digital twin model, we can create for each vessel, we can provide a comprehensive predictive analysis of the ship's performance in relation to agreed ATA, estimate time of arrival, to the agreed speed, to the agreed fuel oil consumption, and of course, the CII rating before and after each voyage. So based on the work that we have done so far, it has been proven that no two ships are the same, even when they are supposed to be identical sisters. And I'm saying this because we stand by the opinion that generic prediction models might be better than nothing, however, are not good enough for those companies that want to excel in their business.
Okay, well said. Eric, any final thoughts?
No, just to say thank you, everyone, for your time. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric, Eleni, and Chris. Thank you, Inmarsat, for sponsoring today's discussion. And to the audience, we're so glad you joined us today on this important topic on connectivity and meeting decarbonization challenges in maritime. Tune in again for more webinars coming your way soon. Also, if you could please stick around and fill out a brief survey immediately following this broadcast, that will help us plan future webinars. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and see you next time.